Welcome to Word of the Day.
Impartial and just.
I believe that this could change.
Also an illustrator.
I had a poem I wanted to share.
Join me today for the poem of the day.
Aggressive action against a place or enemy force.
Today's word of the day is test.
My favorite character that I have written.
What motivates me to create?
Hunger is seriously one of my favorite poems I think I've
I'm
ever
working
written.
so hard to build this magazine and bring it to you guys. This is the Guilded Periodically Podcast, brought to you by the Fiction Forge.
Hey, welcome to the Guilded Periodically Podcast. If you're listening, that probably means that you're interested in Guilded Periodically, our magazine here at the Fiction Forge. You're probably an artist who is also wanting to figure out how do I become a part of the Fiction Forge? How do I become a part of Guilded Periodically? Or you're someone who's just very, very interested in seeing what indie artists are up to. I'm Hues, and I'm going to be your host here at the Guilded Periodically Podcast. Before we dive into what Guilded Periodically is, the magazine and the podcast, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what the Fiction Forge is. So the Fiction Forge is an artist guild that works primarily to preserve North American folklore. What makes us different than a typical nonprofit is that we truly are just a group of like-minded artists who have assembled under the same values and the same worldviews in an attempt to help carve out some more space for the artists that exist within our community. And I know that sounds a little strange. Hughes, there's already a place for artists in the community. What do you mean? But there is a disconnect between artistic training and allowing artists to create. So something that I think that is really important to note is that the Fiction Forge has been forged as a response to the overly invasive commodification that is attached to capitalism. So our hope is that we're able to give artists a place to get paid for creating. We also hope that we'll be able to provide the teaching and training that artists need to be able to flourish in their artistic excellence. So something that the Fiction Forge heavily combats is the idea that education and training is something that you have to pay for. So rather than expect you to go get an arts degree, we would love for you to come and learn with us and help develop your skills with us. So let us help you get where you're going, and maybe you can even teach somebody else your skill. Being a guild, we're a little bit of a mixture between a typical kind of educational platform and a union, meaning that we support our artists and the Forge advocates for the artists that are a part of it. Not only do we help support members by providing them free classes, opportunities for publishing, opportunities to create stickers and books and gallery shows, we also do provide training in those areas whenever it comes to marketing. Making a podcast. We want to provide you with those skills so that you don't need to be concerned about how you're going to learn how to do these things. By being a member of the Forge, we help provide those things for you so you can be self-sufficient. The hope is that you want to stick around, not that you need to stick around at the guild. Something else that makes us a little different than a typical union or a typical guild is that we do in-hiring. So whenever it comes to our teachers, when it comes to our board members, when it comes to the outsourcing of labor for our non-members, so say someone wants to come to us and have us publish their book, we want to hire our members first. So by being a part of the guild, there's almost always guaranteed work. So that's something that I think is really important to note, that we are directly attempting to combat the lack of artistic support in capitalism by providing a tool that utilizes the capitalistic resources as well as the capitalistic mindset to kind of provide a safe space for artists. So in general, we love artists no matter what genre you're in. So if you're a writer or if you're a painter, maybe you're a sculptor, maybe you're a potter, we want all sorts of artists to be here with us, and we want to help you make your art, because I think it's so important that we work in the immediate to help preserve the current contemporary folklore for the people who are coming after us. And by folklore here, we're talking about the voice of the folk, or the works, the art, the lore of the people. So we do want modern day laborers who want to break out into being artists. We want the people who are writing songs while they're also hauling steel. That's who we're looking for. We're looking for the common man who has a story to tell, and we want to help them tell it. And so in order to help bring those values, our values of honesty, trustworthiness, compassion, and love, as well as like our mission to help creating a self-sustaining artistic community, one way we thought that would be a great way to showcase what our skills are and what it is that we have to offer is by creating Guilded Periodically. So Guilded Periodically, our spring edition, is themed after Takes on the Revolution because there is an artistic renaissance that's happening right now. And if you're really into the art world, you'll see there's a huge shift from like this highly glorified word of mouth only artistic endeavor where like people don't want to just support whoever the fuck they want anymore. Like just because your art's good doesn't mean you're going to be supported. They want to actually support the creator behind the art. You'll see there's a lot of feedback that you'll see on social media about people who maybe are not like the most highly skilled when it comes to their artistic careers, but they have a lot of support. This is something that's always happened. You can look at H.P. Lovecraft, Tolkien, pretty much anyone on the New York Best Time Seller list in the last 3 years. These are all people who are not necessarily highly skilled, but they were supported and by their community because they were told to. But that's not happening anymore. People in the modern day want to see artists who are good people. They want to help support good people regardless of their skill. And that's something that's been happening this whole time, but it's become that now that this support is actually being placed in the hands of the laborer, hands of the consumer, versus it being in the hands of like these large corporations that are constantly trying to make money off of our art while never wanting to pay us fair wage. So in order to combat that, we decided that we would focus on this idea of like, what are our individual takes on the revolution and what can we do with that as creators who are periodically gilded? So it is a play on words. So it's meant to be a little bit of a mix of like the ideas and satire that comes with like the National Lampoon, but also with the feeling of like the New Yorker or a Medium post, if you know what the Medium is. So whenever it comes to like the meaning behind Guilded Periodically, there are a couple of things that I think that you should know before you jump in. The first thing is that obviously guild is a play on the fact that we are a guild, but it's also a play on the word gild, G-I-L-D, which represents a being like golden or something being like cased in gold. And so it's a play on the fact that like we have a lot of talent, but it is talent that is often considered superficial, as well as playing on the fact that we are a coalition of like-minded artists coming together to do work together, because that's truly like what a guild is. It is also a little bit on the play of like this concept of like fake it till you make it. So lots of jewelry is gilded. So it's like actually stainless steel or just any sort of like maybe it is allergenic, but like a non-allergenic metal that doesn't make you like break out. I think I'm saying that wrong, but like the idea of like something being like plated with gold. So the idea of like fake it till you make it, the mentality of like showing up and being golden even whenever you aren't or you're not feeling like it. So that was part of the reason why we decided for our title. And I do want to say that while I was the one that came up with the idea, it really would not have flourished without every single person that you're about to meet in this podcast. And it really would not have happened at all if I had not been inspired by them. So I am a tarot reader in my daily life and I'm like highly spiritual. So whenever it came to Guilded Periodically as a concept and all of these like behind the name comments that I'm letting you know, these things were like put into my brain. I wasn't just sitting there like, what should I coming up with these quick little quips? Like it was literally provided to me from a source outside of myself. And like when I think about that, I think about that Guilded Periodically is like representation of like a spiritual movement. And that spiritual movement itself is where we get this play on words of like the misnomer of jilted. And I don't know if you know what the word jilted means, but it means to be shunned, to remove, to be bitter. And the concept of being periodically bitter at the world is something that every single artist, either in the guild or outside of the guild, has faced and has dealt with at one point in time. So I thought it was great for us to be gilded periodically, because periodically represents like the concept of happening in periods. So we have like our spring edition and our fall edition representing like the transition towards death and then the transition towards life. And we thought that it would be great, obviously, because if you're watching this, then you already know that our magazine came out on the spring equinox. So you wanted to align our magazines like being in the hand of the people, its completion, like with these concepts of like following the periods of nature. So it really is like an ode to the healing of every single person who is a part of this, because whether or not you fully realize it now, by the end, you will realize and you will see that being published artists and having our art in the hands of the public is every person's dream here at the Guild and every artist's dream in general. And so because of our perseverance, because of the fact that we are gilded periodically, jilted periodically, showing up in these concepts of like every now and then we have a piece of gold, like every now and then we have a little something to say that might be a little bit controversial, a little bit different, a little bit, as artists trying to like live in this capitalistic society, we worked really fucking hard with one another to be able to make this happen. And like really like our dream is coming true. And that is able to happen because of this like perseverance that is apparent in the work that we're doing, because we have met twice a week, every week for the last 6 months to make this happen, to hold each other accountable, to show up and show others that it is possible if you put your mind to it. Most of us work different jobs. Most of us have a job outside of this. All of the labor that was put into this magazine was 100% free labor on the hope of being able to put it in the hands of the public, to put it in your hands as like the person who's listening to this podcast. And I hope that as you like go through this journey of listening to what each and every one of our artists went through, where their inspiration came from, why they're so passionate about their craft, then maybe you can be a little inspired by that too. And I think that that's part of the reason why we really chose Takes on the Revolution as our spring theme, not just because we're going through an artistic renaissance on the external world, because each and every one of us had to go through that same artistic renaissance on the inside to decide that our art was worth it, whether or not someone ever got to read it, because this was just a hope that we had, a dream that we had, that by the grace of goodwill, source, and good old-fashioned hard work, we now have the opportunity to hand you. So revolution is defined as a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system. By science, it's defined as the action of a celestial body going round and round in orbit. If we were to consider ourselves celestial bodies, what is it that you would revolve around? For me, it would be the Guild and my own personal artwork. So before you dive into the rest of this magazine, I want you to think, what is your personal revolution? What do you revolve around? And if it's something that you don't enjoy, I would like for you to consider to make an epic revolutionary change and put yourself in revolution around something that truly makes you happy. And that little spark of hope, that little light that we're talking about, is the light that you're about to see in every single one of our members. So I do want to say thank you for being here and enjoying Guilded Periodically. And I hope that if you haven't gotten it yet, that you will get the magazine. And I hope that you enjoy it, because I thoroughly enjoyed being able to create it for you. That being said, go on and check out our very first episode about the cover with Luch in the next one. See you there. Again, I'm Hues. This is the Guilded Periodically Podcast. See you soon. Bye.
This has been the Guilded Periodically Podcast, brought to you by The Fiction Forge.